Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Lilla for PokerNews.com. I hope you're having a fantastic day. And today we have a fun hand from a $5,000 buy-in World Series of Poker event. We've been going through a lot of hands from this game and we're going to continue going through them. But before we get started, I would like to offer you a free trial of my site, PokerCoaching.com. You see it right here in the middle of this table. There we have lots of interactive quizzes, homework, questions where you have to go through and answer a broad question like, hey, what would you do right here in this scenario? What is your raising range? What is your calling range? What is your folding range, right? And doing that will help you learn to play very, very well. And it's not just as easy as that. It says, what if you would call on the spot? Okay, that means you don't have pocket aces because you're 3-betting your aces. Let's say the flop, everybody else folds, flop comes 9-7-2. Your opponent checks. What are you doing with your range? Well, that's a big question, right? And if you don't even know how to start answering that question, you're not going to know how to approach poker from a broad and robust point of view, which is how you succeed at the high stakes. So go check that out at PokerCoaching.com. Go back to the first quiz, the first homework webinar, and work your way forward. I know there's a lot of content there. We've been at it for a while, but going through it will make you a much, much better poker player, and you can do it for completely free. So go get your trial. I hope you enjoy it. All right. In this scenario, I'm probably going to mess this up. We have an under-the-gun, loose, aggressive kid with 43 big blinds, and I have ace-king. This is a spot where I 3-bet almost every time, and I think that is by far the best play. Sporadically, though, I will call. The times I typically do call are when I have been reasonably tight, which means I'm unlikely to get value if I 3-bet, and when the opponent is raising from a somewhat early position. So this is definitely one of those candidates, or potentially a candidate, where I may flat. But for the most part, I'm going to be 3-betting this to about 8,000 and being happy going with my hand for 43 big blinds. This time I do call. And like I just said, the reasons I would call is because perhaps I've been on the tighter side just because I've had no good cards. And because maybe I think my opponent's range is a little bit tighter than normal because he's opening from early position. But I have him labeled as a lag kid. So, you know, I should probably 3-bet here. Some people get in their minds that they should never 3-bet ace-king, and I think that's definitely a mistake. The times I don't 3-bet are mainly when I expect to be against a strong range, or I expect my opponents to fold a ton if I 3-bet, and that's not really what you want. I mean, it's fine when your opponents fold. Don't get me wrong. If they fold pre-flop, you do win the 3 big blind pot or 3.5 big blind pot, which is pretty nice. But I don't really want that. I want to be able to play pots in positions with hands that are very, very strong. That's going to allow you to realize your post-flop edge, which is often hard for a lot of programs to analyze. But anyway, here we are. I decided to call. If someone behind me squeezes, I'm sure these stacks are not accurate. Maybe if there's like a 20 big blind stack yet to act, I'm definitely calling. We see Daniel Negreanu over here with with only a 10 big blind, or 20 big blind stack, 23 big blinds. He decides to call. These are all stacks that could jam on you. And if someone jams and then this player jams, I can easily call it off and we'll get lots of money. Actually, I had a similar spot like that happen just recently in Montreal, where under the gun raised, I flatted with ace-king. Someone behind shoved for like 25 big blinds. This guy shoved for 40 big blinds. I called with ace-king. I was against pocket jacks from the under the gun player and ace-queen from the other player. So we got it in as with a nice equity advantage, right? We put in about 33% of the money, give or take. And we're going to win closer to like, well, more than 33% of the time, right? Because the guy with ace-queen is the one who's just very, very crushed. So don't be afraid to set that up if you see that it is likely to happen. In this scenario, Negreanu calls. We see the flop 3 ways. It comes queen, 10, 2. Now, our opponents check to us, and the question is, should we be betting? And this is actually a pretty good spot for me, because if you think about it, what does my flatting range likely look like to my opponents? Well, it should be a lot of king, queens, queen jacks, king jacks, maybe jack 10 suited, maybe pocket 10s, maybe small pairs like pocket, well, small and medium pairs, maybe all the way down to 2s. I'm not really flatting 2s, though, if there are a lot of short stacks behind, because you have to fold to a shove. So my flatting range should be quite strong to start with, and it does connect reasonably well with this board. I'm going to have a lot of top pairs or good draws with king jack. So I don't mind a bet. That said, I would really hate to bet this and get jammed on by anyone with a pair, right? If I bet, let's say 5,000 or 6,000, notice even the 40 big blind stack could just rip it in on me. That would be pretty awful because it would deny me all of this equity. And in the scenario, you're going to find that we have a pretty good amount of equity. When you have 10 outs, even if some of them are less live, even if you have 7 outs, right? That's 28% equity, give or take. And 28's a lot. You really don't want to bet 28 and then fold it. Like if I bet here for 6,000 and Negreanu shoved, I would have to call it off. And that's pretty brutal. Also notice we do beat all the draws at the moment, which is very nice, but it's not like we're loving getting it against draws. So I think I don't mind checking. If I had something like ace-jack, maybe I'd be more inclined to bet. I know it's not a big difference, but having the 2 overcards, I think, just gives us enough equity realization to where we just want to check it back and see what develops. This is a pretty good development. We now have the nuts. And the loose aggressive kid now bets 4,200, which is kind of a bummer. I wish you bet bigger. And this is a spot where you should bet bigger. So what should we do? Should we raise it all in? Should we raise it small or should we call? And I think you can go either way between calling or raising, probably small. If we had a flush draw, we'd probably just raise or bet that on the flop. So given we don't have very many flush draws, there aren't a whole lot of draws in our range. And usually when you have no draws in your range, you typically want to raise on the smaller side, just because our range is going to be very, very value heavy. It's going to be mostly queen jacks, maybe jack 10, maybe 10-9. Maybe king 9 suited, although probably not. Maybe ace king. That's a lot of very good hands, right? So given we have a lot of very good hands here, if we are going to raise, we want to raise small. But I think we're probably better off calling, because if you think about our opponent's range to check the flop and then bet small, it's probably going to be a lot of jacks. Or maybe a lot of junky queens, like queen 9. If he does have a king queen, you know, whatever, just root for him to hit the 9. There are a lot of good rivers for our opponent where he can improve to a straight or 2 pair if he doesn't have a straight or 2 pair already that will allow him to pay us off. And he's probably going to discount the flushes from our range because he should think we would bet the flop with a lot of flush draws, and I'm discounting the flush draws from his range for the same reason, right? So those 2 things combined make me think that we need to call, which is what I do. And also, Negreanu may sporadically raise all in, which would be fantastic, right? Like imagine he's sitting here with queen jack. He's probably just going to check jam, and that's good. But it doesn't happen. On the river, we get a blank, which is amazing, and our opponent bets 13,000. So we're obviously going to raise. We have the nuts. So how much do we raise? This is a situation where on pokercoaching.com, I'd give you a quiz. Should you call? No. Should you raise minimum to 26,000, or should you go all in? This is a very easy one in my mind. We should go all in. Because if you think about our opponent's range to bet the turn and bet the river, especially for this sizing on the river, when people use slightly bigger sizings, and 2/3 pot is kind of big, they usually have a hand that they think is good. This opponent is value betting, or he's just total bluffing. But really, what are the total bluffs, right? Try to come up with total bluffs besides what? Like pocket 9s? Pocket 8s? Which many people don't even turn into bluffs. There are like no bluffs here, right? So given there are no bluffs here when the opponent bets bigger, assuming he's betting a polarized range of good hands and garbage, he probably just is very tilted towards good hands. So given he's very tilted towards good hands, he's going to call any raise size, especially given he's relatively shallow, right? It's not like we're both playing 100K deep. If we're both playing 100K deep, I think I would still raise really big, like 60K. Just because, again, I think the opponent has a good hand. So we are going to blast it. We do go all in. And the opponent folds. That's a bummer. Maybe he had the pocket 9s or the pocket 8s or the ace 9. Maybe he decided to make a big fold. I don't know. I mean, I suppose if he did have ace queen, I don't know why he would bet so big on the river, but he did. So this is one of those weird spots where I kind of figured the all-in would get called a lot. Like, not just a little bit, but a lot. And, you know, just because something will happen very frequently does not mean it will happen all the time. And when it does not happen, that does not necessarily mean that your line was wrong. However, it could mean your line was very wrong. That said, if our opponent's range was legitimately good hands and bluffs, well, when he has the bluffs, he's obviously going to fold. When he has a good hand, he's obviously going to call. Now, if our opponent's range was a lot of marginal made hands, like ace, queen, and king, queen, maybe we just want to raise tiny in that spot. But I don't think that's the case. I think that's going to leave a lot of money on the table. So this looks like it failed here, but it's tough to know. And that really is why poker is a difficult game to learn and a difficult game to analyze even. Because we don't know what the opponent folded, right? If he said, yeah, I folded ace 9, well, then my shove is perfectly fine because we know he's going to bluff with ace-9 and he's going to fold it. But if he said he folded ace-queen or jack-10, well, then my play was awful. And, you know, to be fair, maybe he doesn't call any river raise. Like, let's just say he never calls river raises because he thinks river raises are the nuts. Well, in that case, then there's nothing I could do, right? Well, maybe I should have raised the turn. But if there's nothing you can do on the river, there's nothing you can do on the river. That said, when the opponent does fold, it should at least make you step back and think, are there other options? But just because there are other options does not mean those options are better. And I'm going to rest pretty happy just assuming I played this hand fine. And it didn't work out. Sometimes it doesn't work out. And, you know, that's okay. It's not always going to work out like you want it to. So that's going to be it for today for PokerNews.com. Thank you very much for being here. Again, if you have not, go to PokerCoaching.com. Sign up for your completely free 7-day trial. Go through all the quizzes. Go through all the homework. Binge it, then cancel on me. I don't care. I know it's going to provide you a lot of value, and that's all I really want to do. I want to help you all out. So check it out at PokerCoaching.com. Good luck in your games, and I'll see you back here next week.